Okay, so this is the first video I've ever made. This is going to be a training video for armor. We're going to go over basic kit customization and what that should look like. Most of you guys know how to use the arsenal, so I'm not going to go over that. I'm going to talk about uniforms. We stick with NATO uniforms in here. We just recently added the trike pack to our mod list, but I like the vanilla uniform, so I'm going to go with MTPT. So I'm going to start right here at the top. I'm going to go through my rules for weapon selection. I prefer to run a 5.56 standard. The people that I play with also run a 5.56 standard. This is kind of cool because if one of us picks up, say, an M16, then we can all share magazines for it. As long as you don't use the stand-egg rounds, you use the generic 5.56 rounds. These generic 5.56 rounds are interchangeable with the M16, and as well as with the, if I can find it in here somewhere, the M4. Which is actually my weapon of choice because I like something that's a little more optimized for CQB, even if it doesn't have the same range options that, say, the M16 would have. So I'm going to roll with an M4. I'm going to get a black one, and I'm going to pick up some 5.56 mags for it. So I'm going to go into my vest now because I need to put some gear on here. I typically run with the Carrier GL Rig Black. I also like the Carrier Special Rig Black, but this one actually carries more load with less weight. It has a little bit less bullet resistance, but a little bit higher explosive resistance, which is what I typically find myself running into. So I'm going to use that. And for my backpack, I prefer all the way down here at the bottom the US Tactical Backpack. This is a pretty good backpack. It's got a pretty good load, but it's not too heavy, and it's not too big. We are going to grab our helmet next, and then I'm going to explain why I chose what I chose. So here's the Enhanced Combat Helmet Black. This is the loadout that I run my guy with, and the reason that I do this is because all of the guys that I run with load their guys out the same way. This means that from looking at a backpack and a vest and a helmet, I can tell if they're one of my guys, if they're part of my squad, if they have 5.56 ammunition, and if I should shoot them in the back because they might not be friendly. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab a couple more things. I'm going to grab my Gen 3 Night Vision Goggles Black, and I'm going to grab my Vector 21, and I'll go over that in a later tutorial, but we use the Vector 21 instead of the rangefinder because it has some additional nifty options for measuring things out. The map I leave alone. I always carry a UAV terminal because in our vest we're going to load up something called the Micro Dagger GPS. Micro Dagger GPS will replace our GPS in this particular loadout because it's highly more functional than the regular GPS system. So that covered terminal communications. We're running the ANPRC 152 because we're using TFAR. You can see I'm getting a Pipe 6 air because I'm not connected to TeamSpeak right now. And for my watch, I always select the altimeter watch. Now, there's not a whole lot of difference except that this watch doesn't show you seconds in increments, which can be a little bit of an issue, but it does show you your altitude and your meters per second. Both of these things are important for some of the things that we do, like halo dropping, or if we're doing some kind of a steel drop. So I'm going to come back in here to the arsenal, and I'm going to go back to my vest again because we're going to load up some more special gear. I always carry something called the Hunt IR monitor. I'm going to load in my map tools because, of course, we're going to need those. I always bring at least two cable ties because you never know when you're going to need them, and I bring a diffusal kit. Now, these are mostly ace and cup options. Make sure you bring a mag light and your earplugs. If you don't have earplugs in a vehicle or nearby explosives, it's not going to be fun. Now, because I'm trying to create a sort of Swiss Army knife kit here, I'm also going to bring the firing device, and to that we will add two M1112 demolition blocks. And you can see that takes up most of the room in this pack, but it gives me a lot of options in combat. I can access now a UAV or a Hunt IR. I've got my map tools for using on my map. I've got my mag light, which you need to see the map at night. I've got my earplugs. I've got my diffusal kit and my firing device and my cable ties. All of your medical supplies should always be loaded in your backpack so that the medic can get to them at any time if he needs them for you or for somebody else. Finally, I'm going to load out my vest loadout with grenades. Now, grenades are very important. I always carry at least two stun grenades because sometimes you're going in to do hostage rescue missions and you can't just frag the building. I always carry at least one, but usually two IR grenades NATO for marking my position at night. I carry two white smokes for providing cover, one green smoke for marking a friendly position, and one red smoke for marking an enemy position. Now, I like to standardize my loadouts, so I'm also going to add in my two frag grenades here. I always carry at least two frag grenades because they're important. And that's actually going to be it for. When we run Ghost, we have an L86 auto rifleman who can use all of our 5.56 ammo. So I'm going to pick up a Beta C mag, because that way, if the auto rifleman runs out of ammo, he can grab anybody's backpack and pull out the Beta C mag and have another round to go. And I'm going to throw in a couple more rounds. If I can find more standard, here's 5.56. I'm going to add in a couple more rounds of the standard 5.56. Now, this is basically my Rifleman loadout kit. I'm missing a couple of things. I like to run with the RCO scope, just because it gives me a good close range and a good long range scope. I can't put a rail attachment on this one. I'm not sure why. I always run suppressed, and there's no bipods, unfortunately, for the M4. So this is basically my loadout right here. Now you can see if I open up my inventory, I'm at about 30 kilograms. I have 2 bars of stamina, but I don't have quite as much ammo as I might like, and I'm a little bit short on ammo supplies. I usually don't run with less than 12 magazines. So we're going to come back in here to the arsenal. We're going to go back to our backpack. My typical loadout for medical supplies consists of 15 bandages, 6 morphine, and I always carry 4 epinephrine injectors. Again, we're running basic, so we don't need any more medical supplies than that. And I'm going to pick up my 2 extra magazines right here. And that's basically my kit. Now if I go in here, you can see I've got my Hunt IR, I've got my micro dagger, I've got my IR grenades, I've got my explosive devices, and I've got all of my medical supplies that I need. And that is the standard Rifleman kit for our Ghost loadout. This means that I can take a prisoner, I can set charges, I can fire my rifle. You might want to swap out this particular M4 for one that has a laser designator on it, or for one that has a 203 launcher, so you can carry some HE rounds. That's perfectly acceptable. But the basic loadout is the same.